Hi, welcome to Sacred Struggles. I'm your host, Adia Guidry. Today we're talking about something no one ever really told me. How you can love God so deeply. He can be so precious to you, but somehow your marriage becomes an idol. Like, you know God, you have a relationship with Him, and then somehow you get married and you expect the marriage, you expect your husband to rescue you, to fix you, to heal you, to help you with things only God can do. If this relates to you, keep watching. I'm also going to be making more videos kind of around this subject. And so just to give you a little bit of background on me, I have been married this month, this year will be 18 years. And we have had a very long journey. It's been over 20 years that we've been together. And to say we've had ups and downs would be to put it very mildly. But I want to focus this episode on how my marriage and my husband became my idol. So I want to talk to you a little bit about just how it all started. I didn't enter marriage with a blank slate. I didn't think, yeah, that's the next step for me. I want to get married to this person because we're so in love and we want to honor God. I don't feel like that's how it happened for me. I do remember before I got before I got into marriage and before I got engaged, I remember being in college with some of my best friends till this day. And I remember this day so vividly. We were in the jacuzzi, hanging out, doing girl talk, girl time. And it was towards middle of college year. And we all were we all had the same major. We were all psychology majors. We all wanted to do med school, possibly psychiatry. But we were all psychology majors at the time. And we were talking about what we wanted to do with our life, our goals after we graduated college, what we saw in our future. And we each kind of went around, and I went last, and I listened to them. And I remember them talking about either going off to medical school, opening up, some practice, or working with people, helping change lives. And I remember when it came to me, not feeling embarrassed, but feeling very sure that this was my goal. And I said, when I graduate, one of my top goals is to become a wife and to become a mother. And nobody said anything. We had a really good relationship, and so there was no judgment, but I just remember that time so vividly because that was my goal. And I think that was when I should have realized that I had so much weight in becoming a wife and becoming a mother that it would ultimately become an idol. So as I kind of look back on who I had as role models for marriage, they're very few in my family. My parents were not married. In fact, I did not have a relationship with my father growing up. And I did have a great relationship with my grandfather, who lived with us from my birth until his death. And so him and my grandmother were married. And so I did see their marriage play out, which had some pros and cons. They were 2 generations behind me. And a lot of times I thought that was just the old way of doing things, staying together for the kids they had, which was about 7, staying together for financial reasons because my grandmother didn't work, or when I saw them get old, they took care of each other. My grandfather took care of my grandmother, who passed away first. But it wasn't until I've gone through my own process that I believe they stayed together because there was a covenant there, a covenant between them and God held them together. And but besides them, I didn't really have a picture of healthy marriage. Obviously, there's movies that most women, girls get swept away with. You're watching Disney movies, princess movies. And I do think that subconsciously those crept in. You would see the woman having turmoil in their life, and somehow this man would swoop in and things would just get better because he was present. And subconsciously, I think that did play a role. I also saw my mother go through like a partnership, I would say, with my father, and then another partnership with my younger sibling's father, and how it just didn't work out for her. And I was, a teenager going through teenager hormones and ideas, but I remember making a pledge to myself that that was never going to be me, that I was going to be married to the father of my children, and we were going to be happy and stay together forever. That was the picture in my head. That's what my expectations were. But as time went on in my marriage, in the beginning, we were so happy. We were young. We were connected. We were best friends. It felt like for a long time that I was getting what I wanted, which was the happily ever after, the partner that wouldn't walk away, the reassurance, the peace, the best friend. I was so vulnerable with my husband. I was so vulnerable and transparent, and I gave my whole heart to him. But what I'm realizing now is I kind of have stepped away from that idolization is I didn't love him wholeheartedly. I put my claws in our marriage, in him. I expected him to help heal wounds that I've had since childhood. I didn't surrender those wounds to God because I felt like God gave me my husband to do that he was going to be my rock, and he was going to heal all of the wounds inside of me. And so I would often pray, but then look for the answer in him, in my marriage. I became very, I don't know if the word is self-righteous, but I know that I wouldn't leave my house without my ring. I wouldn't want to go to parties or events without my husband. It was my whole identity, and it was my my source. And I clung to it very, very hard. But as time went on, I started noticing something wasn't lining up. The marriage that I had imagined and the marriage that I was actually living, they didn't always line up. For one thing, we got to a point where this was year 7. My husband was in the military, and he had been deploying often. And there were a lot of times where I was alone. And I remember feeling so lonely. And I would ask God why, he put us in this position. And instead of waiting for him to respond or answer me, I started to create my own plan. The plan to exit the military, to get out of the situation so that I could have my husband around as often as I wanted. That was a marker for me. Instead of using that time where he was deployed to grow closer to the Lord and have the Lord fill that loneliness, I created a plan to remove the obstacle of the military so that I could have my husband around so I wouldn't be lonely. And so I devised a plan. I told him we were going to get out of the military. I moved me and the kids back to our home state, and I got a career started paying off debt because I had to make sure I checked all of the boxes that I needed to finish this plan and make sure that I wouldn't have to be lonely. That's, I think, the first time God really got a hold of me. I was so deep in this plan. I remember writing everything out. This is how much money we need to make monthly. This is how much we need for a down payment. This is how much I need to pay off my school loans. And if we get all of these things taken care of, we can get out of the military and I can have the life that I want. And I always had God near. I would read the Bible. I would go to church here and there. But I didn't surrender my feelings to him. And I remember one night waking up in the middle of the night, writing something down and feeling God speak to me and saying, "What are you doing? Why do you think that you are in control of this? You're not acting as a wife. You're not acting in a way that you're relying on me. You are acting as if you're God. You're taking control of everything and you're not leaning on me." And so in that moment, I said, "Okay, God, I hear you. What do you want me to do?" And he told me, "First, I want you to read about your role as a wife." And so I started to read about what God was telling me to do as a wife. And that led to me saying, I'm not supposed to make all these decisions by myself. Let me check with my husband to see what he wants to do. And of course, he wanted to stay in the military. And so we ended up staying in. We moved back in together. And I felt like things were starting to line back up. But as time went on, again, what surprised me the most was not the disappointment I felt from following what I thought God told me to do, but the way that I was handling everything. So I thought that when I met God that night and understood my role as a wife and moved back in with my husband and continued on this military journey, that I wouldn't feel those same feelings that I was feeling, but because I started following my wifely role more closely, submitting more, letting my husband make more decisions, I thought that that was going to fill the void that I was still experiencing. I thought that was somehow going to rescue me and make me feel peace, but it didn't, because I still continued to look to my husband to provide that for me. At some point, it became clear that I wasn't just frustrated with my marriage, I was asking it to carry what it was never meant to hold. I wasn't supposed to get peace from my husband. Only God can give you peace. And I didn't know that. There was also some imbalancing of love. Like, if you look to a man, a person, a human to give you what God is supposed to give you, it'll never work. But there is a part of you that expects this unconditional love, this love that will never leave you. And I didn't know that that love can only and solely come from the Lord. His love is wide and deep and high and all-encompassing. That's what's going to fill that void. That's what's going to rescue you. And that's what's going to give you the peace. I didn't know that. So I became frustrated, and because the idol that I had, my marriage, my husband, wasn't living up to a good God, obviously. It was letdown after letdown, frustration after frustration. And I believe God put us in the fire. He put me in the fire to get me to wake up, to get me to realize that if this marriage is what you're looking to be your God, to be your rescuer, I'll burn it to the ground. And I will take it away. If that's what it takes for you to open your eyes and see that you need to surrender this, I'll do it. And I'll allow it to happen. When I think about it, I think part of this, part of why I had my claws so deep in this marriage and in this man was because I was resilient, because I was determined, because I was strong. I had this gift of loving so much. I would say like an empath. You know, I could feel his feelings and I wanted to make things right. I wanted to be this great helpmate. I could just do it all. I could do it. I could fill this role that felt like I was called to. But what I didn't realize I was doing in the process was I wasn't surrendered to God. God wasn't the foundation of why I wanted to be a wife. That was my pride. That was my ego. That was my own will. And I'm so thankful for his mercies, for his grace that he kept me and he kept our marriage, but I made it my idol. I really did. He didn't expose it all at once. God, he was patient with me. Little by little, he started to reveal some of these shortcomings of my marriage. Little by little, he started to reveal why he needed me to lean on him instead of my husband. And I refused to look at those signs. I refused to trust God in all that he was doing and all that he was trying to teach me. And that's why I feel like the fire came and almost nearly destroyed everything that I wanted so bad. So when that fire dang near took out our whole marriage, I had no choice but to surrender everything to God. And I said, okay, God, here's my marriage. Here's my title as wife. Here's my husband. Here, it's all on the altar for you to take. I surrender everything to you. And I realized that I loved this more than I loved you. I depended on this for peace, for safety, security, for filling voids that only you could fill. And here, it's yours, take it. And that is the moment when I finally started to feel real peace, godly peace that nobody can take from you, nobody can explain to you, and you could barely comprehend or understand. When I finally took my marriage and my husband off of this idolized part of my mind and put it on the altar for God, was when things started to be clear to me. This is a journey that I'm still on, but I've learned that when God is first in your marriage, when you love God first, when you put him first, when you need him first, when you go to him first, when you ask him first, that's when you experience his promises. So I wanted to make this video, and I have a few more that I want to share as I start to open up on this podcast. For those of you that are maybe not married yet, you want to be married so desperately, or you're going through your first few years of marriage, or you've already been married, or you've been divorced, it runs the gamut that we slowly make things idols that we don't even realize. And good things that God can give us, gifts, we can make those into idols too. And we start to look to the gift instead of the giver of the gift. And that's the problem. So I hope this podcast helped in some way. I feel like there's healing in telling stories, and I have so many more to tell. If you resonate with this, leave a comment. I think that would be helpful and healing to not just me, but the community that I would like to build. And like I said, I have more on this subject and on this topic that I want to share. So I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe and like. All right.